Lawrence talks about Clouds Hill in a letter to Lady Astor in 1934. He says, "My cottage is a gem of gems in the eye of its owner. You see, I've almost made it from the roots up. It is as ugly as my sins. Black, angular, small, unstable, very like its creator. Yet I love it." It was built in 1808 as a forester's cottage. It's very, very simple. It's essentially 4 rooms. It has no kitchen and has no loo. Lawrence had no electricity when he lived there. He lived very frugally. It was the sort of place he felt he could leave whenever he wanted. He could come and go, basically, whenever he wanted. This room is the one that I remember the most clearly when I've gone away. From the first time I came here, it's the one that's stayed in my head. And when I walked into it the first time, there's an incredible sense of it being inhabited. Some people have come in here and found it very oppressive, and certainly the first time I walked in, I was with my mother, and we both almost were surprised by the level of aliveness in the room, as if the owner had just gone out to make a cup of tea, or it didn't have a preserved quality about it at all. All the time I'm in the house, I can't help thinking that he might just walk in any minute and put on a record, or maybe ask me to leave. I don't know. And across the landing is this storeroom. The most obvious thing about the storeroom is the fact that the walls have been lined with aluminium asbestos lining paper, the idea of which I think was to keep the room cool in summer and warm in winter. And now it is warm outside and it's cool in here. I think this was Lawrence, again, using modern materials to make things efficient and effective and simple. And I suppose the idea was to keep this room at a constant temperature, mainly because it was a room for food supplies. And also there's this porthole. He had put in this porthole. I think he requested from a friend to find from a breaker's yard the porthole from a ship. Well, I think this was, I suppose you would call this the library, although it had had many functions, I think. Reading room, place to have tea, bedroom. There's an incredible sense in the room of concentration and peace and quietness, and I think that's to do with the time and effort Lawrence put into making this house so much his own. You could say almost selfishly his own. I mean, there's this chair that Lawrence had made. It's an indication of how personal a house it is. And there's this reading stand that he had made across, so he could sit almost imprisoned in front of a book. And I think these were made deliberately very wide so he could put a cup of tea on one of the arms. And there's this bed. I call it a bed. I mean, I think it was a reading couch as well as a bed, and I don't think Lawrence ever just slept in one place. I'm not sure I'm allowed to lie on it. Am I? I am allowed to lie on it. It is very comfortable. I can imagine that it would be great to have
or books spread out. More than one book, maybe.
The whole point about Clouds Hill, as Lawrence saw it, I think, was that he could leave it at any time with minimum fuss. The whole thing, I think, was brought together on the principle of minimalism. I love this bathroom. I think it's the simplest bathroom I've ever been in. But the one thing, there's no sink, and the one thing there is not, very clearly, is a loo. There was no water closet outside. Lawrence had a spade by the door and told his friends that he had 4 acres of land and they should make use of it in that way. The only rule being, please don't be visible from the window. That was the house rule. My first memory of hearing about Lawrence was through my mother and my father, because they had a brief acquaintance with the writer Henry Williamson.
Lawrence died on a motorbike, having just sent a telegram to Henry Williamson confirming a lunch arrangement on a Tuesday at Clouds Hill.
Well, this is the stretch of road on which Lawrence crashed his motorbike and was killed. The road is very busy, and all I feel as I stand here is a deep loathing of the motor car, and wish it would just be a few moments of no cars. And, you know, one's imagination could get a sense of maybe there, now. Oh, thanks. This is St. Martin's Church in Wareham, a few miles from Clouds Hill. It's a very small 10th century church, and in it is an effigy of Lawrence, carved by Eric Kennington. And I think it's particularly fitting in a way. The church is small and simple, much like the rooms at Clouds Hill. And there's a great quietness about the attitude of Lawrence. I think it's an extraordinarily beautiful piece of carving. And the face of Lawrence is incredibly delicate and seems to hold all the qualities of strength and sensitivity.
I take away from Clouds Hill a sense of loneliness, a sense of someone seeking. And it's interesting that he rode a motorbike and rode one very, very well, and there's in a way a counterpoint to the containment of Clouds Hill and this idea of this man getting on this bike and just opening up the throttle and surging into the light and into his own particular kind of freedom.